Okay, there we go.
Perfect. What is this? All right, y'all. Well, Osiyo, Nagad, Wesa, Dakwadoa, Chichalag, Nadagi, Janilla. Hi, y'all. My name is Rachel Caldwell Hill. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I'm from the great state of Texas, and I'm so excited to get to talk with y'all today about lessons from the Three Sisters Garden and a little bit more about our garden programs. Before I get started, I just wanted to let y'all know that I am coming off of the flu. So, in case my voice sounds strange or if I have to take a pause, it's because of that, and I apologize. But yeah, so getting started, we're going to talk again about Three Sisters gardening and different things along those lines. Before I get started, I was curious if anyone actually has previous experience with Three Sisters gardens. And you can drop that in the chat or just like do the little hand raise on Zoom. Um, but yeah, awesome, cool. Well, again, we're going to be talking about Three Sisters, but moreover, there's going to be a few other topics that I'm going to be discussing here. The three main takeaways of the seminar, this presentation is one, I'd love for y'all to get to know the Central Texas Cherokee Township and some of our community partners a little bit better. Three Sisters gardening is also called companion planting. And so we really need y'all to get to know our companions and the ways that we are able to make these things grow. Second, we would love for y'all to hear about our efforts with heirloom seeds. So those the Three Sisters seeds that we're growing and some more information about that. And then third, of course, is to learn some Cherokee. So you've already heard me speak a little bit of it. One thing I can say is OCO is the word for hello. So anytime you hear folks saying OCO, especially if they're a Cherokee, or they'll say OCO or CO, that means they're saying hello to you. And oftentimes that means they want to hear it back as well. So if you're ever in public with someone and you hear the word CO, I'll probably scream it back to them, kind of a thing, because it's just a fun way of us getting to know each other. So OCO is the first word, and we've already gotten started. So super excited about that. Let's keep going. So a little bit more about the Central Texas Cherokee Township. CTCT is an at-large community that serves Cherokee citizens and their family members that live outside the traditional service area of the Cherokee Nation, based out of Tahlequah, Oklahoma. So the Cherokee Nation has 14 counties within the nation. And obviously, if you live outside the boundaries of that, it can be hard to access certain programs and things along those lines. So the Central Texas Cherokee Township is a not a certified 501(c)(3) through the state of Texas. And we get a lot of support and things like that from the Cherokee Nation. And we are dedicated, like I said, to serving our citizens and their families and our communities through history, art, games, and foodways. And I'd say our most successful program has been our Three Sisters Garden. Um, Here's a few photos you can see from some of those programs. We really, really like to get out in the community and sort of join people out in nature. One of those things, you can see a few of these photos are inside, but it's really important for us, again, to connect to the land that we're living on. So, being based in Austin, Texas, I'm not sure if I told y'all guys that, but Central Texas Cherokee Township, we're based out of Austin, but we really understand that Austin is the capital, meaning we sort of try to represent folks from all over the state and try to reach out and find them wherever they are in that way. So we have to go out into the land to community events and different things along those lines to find folks and help them connect with each other, with culture, and with the land. And one of the ways we do that is with our Three Sisters Gardens. Like I said earlier, we really like to invite folks to get it to sort of get involved. And Three Sisters is also often called companion planting. It's sort of a science or technology along those lines. And we really see that relating to one of our Cherokee community values of Gadugi. Gadugi means people coming together as one and working to help one another. And it's one of our guiding community values and one of the things that has really helped us to grow this program. And so, starting from the ground up, it's inviting people in and really understanding what we're doing and where we're working at. And so, I wanted to sort of take us through maybe some potential options and sort of talk y'all through how we do our Three Sisters Gardens, some of the things we've learned along the way, some of the community partners that have been really good helps for us, and different things along those lines. So quickly, Three Sisters Gardens. The Three Sisters are traditionally grown together in a system where each plant supports the others. It creates a balanced and sustainable ecosystem. So this method often reflects our approach to community work, When we grow together, we thrive together. So Three Sisters are the corn, the beans, and the squash. Corn for Cherokee, we're a corn culture. I joke about that in the sense as soon as a culture is introduced to corn, they automatically become a corn culture. Corn is almost in everything around us. And corn is really one of our pride and joys when it comes to our Cherokee Three Sisters garden. So Selu is that word for corn, Tuya is beans, and then Iya is squash. And those are the three sisters that we get to put into the ground together that grow our programs. And they're vital to be growing together. And over the next few slides, we'll sort of talk you through how we get to there. A little bit more about corn. Like I said, that white eagle corn is going to be one of our main focuses, and corn is really significant to the Cherokee. We have Unethlana, our creator. One of our stories is that Unethlana told us, looked down and saw that the people were hungry, they were starving, and they couldn't have food. They also were fighting. They couldn't have community because they were so hungry. And when Unethlana looked down at us and said, I will give you something, and if you take care of it, it will take care of you. And they gave us corn, Selu. And so we've really tried to focus our Three Sisters garden program out of that Cherokee White Eagle corn. It's a traditional heirloom variety whose genetics were provided to the Cherokee Nation by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians back in the 2000s. I believe it was like 2006, 2007, sometime around then. And we believe that it represents our commitment to preserving ancestral lifeways while building community connections through gardening and cultural education. So when we first started out doing Three Sisters gardening, we were working very specifically with heirloom seeds. And these heirloom seeds, I'm sure you're aware, they adjust a little different depending on the growing area. So these seeds that were originally acclimated to growing either in North Carolina, where the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians live, out near the Qualla boundary, or alternatively, the seeds that were provided from the Cherokee Nation seed bank that were acclimated to the Oklahoma growing region, they struggled really bad here in Texas. And one of our things is there's an old saying that no self-respecting Cherokee would be caught without a corn patch. So we said, Three Sisters it is. We have to bring this corn. We have to bring the beans and squash. They can't exist without each other. And so 4 or 5 years ago now, yeah, 4.5-ish, we got our first round of Cherokee White Eagle seeds in from the Cherokee Nation, and we started growing our Cherokee or growing our Three Sisters garden program. So with that, what it looked like was essentially really understanding, like I said, from the ground up, what we were working with, understanding that we only have about 6 inches of topsoil in Central Texas, and knowing too that once we grow this, where would it potentially be distributed and things along those lines. Our goal was always to connect other Cherokees and other people with that heirloom corn, with that seed, so that they could be able to grow the corn themselves. Texas has 15 distinct soil regions, so it's really important to understand what we're working with before we even put that seed into the ground. For us, where we were growing, we realized also too that we lacked a lot of nitrogen in the soil. And so we had to do a few amendments, but that's where those beans came in as well. It was so important for us to grow Three Sisters because if we tried to grow corn, we would suck all of that, whatever remaining nutrients was in the soil out of it. So Three Sisters for us was not only an opportunity to grow our heirloom seeds, it was also an opportunity to sort of reinvigorate the land that we were living in, really working with that dirt and things along those lines. You'll see the video on the side here is from one of our community partners. It's within Austin ISD, where we get to go to a few of the different elementary schools and work with PTAs and things along those lines. And this is a video taken from when we're prepping our gardens. So before we even start thinking of planting or anything like that, we are really getting our hands dirty in the soil. Once we really understand what soil or surroundings we're working with, that's when we can really get in and start to build the gardens up. So we plant in mounded systems to allow the sisters more opportunities to work together. Selu goes in first, so corn goes in first. Once we build these mounds, we put in two corn kernels, 2 or 3 per mound, and then we'll be able to sort of weed them out once once they start to grow. We always want the healthiest corn stalk to grow. Sometimes you can get two stalks to grow out of a mound, like what you see here. But generally speaking, we like to try to keep one corn stalk there so it can get nice and strong. We also like to do it in this mounded system as well because it allows the plants to sort of be a little bit closer together. Corn is really, we say it's sisterly in that way, and it really wants to be up next to its sisters. It wants to be knocking elbows with them. So we want our corn to be really, really close together. Also because it's wind pollinated. So corn being a wind pollinated plant, it has to, that wind has to be able to shake it, and that pollen has to be able to get to that corn silk on it. Otherwise, if not, you have to do hand pollinating, which is where we would walk around and sort of cut one of the corn tassels off the top. It's got all that yellow pollen on it, and we would go around and manually hit that corn silk and wrap that corn silk sort of with that pollen. Every single kernel of corn that is on your corn cob is where a piece of pollen stuck to your corn silk. So we always think it's really, really important not only to think through like the end result, the harvest, but truly to start thinking through every single process in the gardening thing. So once we layer this out and the mounds and we cover everything with a nice layer of mulch, we'll start watering and trying to really make monitoring that corn and let it grow up to 8 to 10 inches tall. That 8 to 10 inches is very important as well because it provides that strong structure for your beans. Um, After your corn is 8 to 10 inches tall, you can put the beans directly into your mounds and start watering them that way. I generally speaking will do probably between 5 to 10 beans per mound. And I put them all around the mound on every single side, and each mound gets them. And we do this partially because we don't know which bean plant is going to be the most successful. The sun, the water, different things along those lines may influence what's growing or what have you. But we also do it because the beans are fixing nitrogen to the soil. They have rhizomes in their roots that allow that nitrogen to be reinserted into the soil, whereas corn sucks all the nitrogen out. So we wouldn't be able to just grow corn. We have to grow the beans alongside it. And that corn stalk, because it's 8 to 10 inches tall at that point, will provide really nice structure for your beans. We plant pole beans. That's a little trick that we've learned as well. Any bush beans won't really vine up your corn stalks that well. And so it doesn't provide as much support. Your beans, if you get a bush bean, the bush bean might end up like falling over, getting a little too heavy. So we prefer the pole beans. And like I said, that 8 to 10 inches tall is really important. I don't know if any of y'all have sisters, but I'm a twin, and I can tell you, as my twin sister and I were growing up, we would argue and climb over each other and fight just as much as any brothers would. And corn and beans are very similar to that. Your beans, if you put them in too early, will try to almost smother your corn. You have to go in there and sort of unravel them and really make sure that they're working well together. So that's just another reason that we really recommend waiting until they're about 8 to 10 inches tall until you add those beans in. After you add the beans directly in, you want to wait until you can see them pushing out of the ground, and then you can add Iya. Iya is pumpkin or squash. And those pumpkin or squash vines will provide these really wide leaves, and those leaves and stuff add layers of protection to the ground, and you would plant them directly in between the spaces of the mounds. So as they grow, they'll vine between each of them and they'll cover that ground space. The leaves will spread out and prevent excess erosion and pests from getting in deep in there, and provide more support for the other two sisters. So it's very holistic in that sense. When it comes to harvesting or getting your Three Sisters garden to grow, one of our biggest tips is that water is your Texas garden's best friend. To ensure a healthy harvest, you need to make sure that your Three Sisters are consistently well hydrated and well monitored, not only for hydration, but also for potential heat damage or pests. One of the things that we've really recognized with this is that it's great for kids. We love having our kids come out and monitor and water our garden. It is, we will say it's an early morning or an in the evening kind of a thing that you have to do, especially here in Central Texas, just because of how hot it gets when we're growing our corn. We start prepping our Three Sisters gardens in February, with corn growing in the ground late February, early March. So as it starts getting bigger and needing more water, it starts getting really, really hot. And so a lot of times we like to bring kids out into the garden either early in the morning and in the evening and have them come help us water, but also have them come help us monitor for pests. The more successful your garden, the more pests that you will attract here in Central Texas. I'm sure y'all are aware we have these lovely little things called the squash vine borer beetle, and they love all of our squash and our pumpkins. We were growing a Cherokee heirloom pumpkin, and it was just getting torn up by those squash vine borer beetles. One of the things that we actually figured out, and that one of our students helped us figure out as well, is that if we grow, we can almost distract the vine borer beetles in a way where we'll grow specific cucurbits in a separate bed that have really wide open and interior stems. So it's almost like an invitation to those squash vine borer beetles, like go over there, don't bother the Three Sisters kind of a thing. But that said, we certainly do still need to monitor. So that's where kids really love going out there and, sort of playing protector to the garden. The bigger it gets, beyond the squash vine borer beetles, you'll also attract things like rabbits. You'll attract things like grasshoppers, different things along those lines that will really try to eat at your crops and things like that. And so kids love getting up in there and literally hand flicking the critters and the pests off so that we can make sure we're protecting our plants and things along those lines. Each sister, when it comes to harvesting and protecting it, has various different timelines, partially because we like to stagger our planting, but also because they have different development times. For instance, in Texas, our Cherokee White Eagle corn grows for approximately 110 to 120 days. So if you're putting it in the ground in late February or early March, you can expect to harvest by late May, early June. But oftentimes, when that's happening, our beans aren't ready yet, our pumpkins aren't ready yet. And so that's also a thing that we have to keep in mind is that time exists a little bit different in our Three Sisters garden. It's a game of constantly going and checking and constantly looking back at what you had previously done, but also planning for the future. Like I said earlier, those that tuya, the beans, they're fixing nitrogen into the soil, but it's not for the current generation's crop. It's for next generation's crop. So as your corn is growing up tall and strong, it's actually it's using the nutrients from the last season. And so when we think through our Cherokee Three Sisters gardens that we have out here in Central Texas, we're really thinking as well of like how are we honoring the past work, our ancestors, the people who came before us that worked this land and did these projects, but also how are we honoring the people who are here today and how can we build better futures for those who are yet to come. And we really see harvesting as a really beautiful opportunity for that as well. When it comes to harvesting, you can either leave your corn on that stalk to dry out, but like we said, it's a really yummy uh, harvest. So you'll get some pests and things along those lines. So we will try to leave it as long as we can and then pull it off. We'll peel it back so that we don't leave any opportunity for potential mildew or rust or anything along those lines, and then let it dry in a like temperature regulated area. So whether that's like a garage or a closet or what have you, we'll dry it out until that seed is nice and dry, and then we can either nixtalomize it and make it into food, or we can reinvest it back into the land and grow more corn, more beans, more squash, different things along those lines. So we generally speaking follow the same order that we put the plants into the ground. We'll harvest corn first, and then we'll harvest beans and squash. Here in Texas, we have a very long growing season. So we oftentimes can get two, sometimes three, mainly two growing seasons in. But it really depends on your water. And so that's also sort of what we mean when it comes to thinking about the garden as an exercise in time, sometimes too, where it's like we're collecting water constantly for our garden as well. So having rainwater barrels or buckets out to collect rainwater so that we can pour it on into the garden is always really a necessary thing. But generally speaking, the most success that we've had is our corn does really, really well that first growing season. So, March to May, June-ish. And then we can and then it gets really, really hot. So as it's getting really, really hot, that's when your beans and your pumpkins are really starting to get bigger and grow. And so you'll start to be able to harvest those June, July, August-ish, and you can try to put in another thing of corn around that time as well. We generally have more success, excuse me, in the second round with beans and squash as it starts cooling off in the fall, and more success with corn that first round of harvesting. An important thing again about Three Sisters garden work is just the companion aspect, the community aspect. It's that Gadugi in action, you know. The Central Texas Cherokee Township, we would not be able to grow our Three Sisters garden if it wasn't for our amazing community partners. Our work is rooted in collaboration from universities to cultural centers. Our partners help us grow gardens, share seed, and pass down traditional knowledge. So a few of our major partners, for instance, are places like St. Edward's University, and upcoming this next year, we'll be actually growing Three Sisters as well with the University of Texas at Austin. Austin ISD and the Native American Cultural Center here in Austin have been amazing partners, as well as other local places like the Red Salmon Arts Bookstore, and then individual community members as well. We're growing our Three Sisters, not for any individual in specific. So that means that we really get to be able to share it with so many different people, but at the same time, we have to be very protective. Our Cherokee White Eagle corn is that genetic stock, like we said, from our Cherokee ancestors and from the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. So, corn being a wind and an air pollinated plant, we generally speaking, we won't grow Cherokee White Eagle if there's other corn grown in the area because we don't want that cross pollination. So it really is a collaborative work where we have to really know the area. We need to know the people that we're growing with and the land that it's growing on. And Three Sisters allows us to do it in that way. A few photos from some of our Three Sisters gardens and some of our associated events. We, like I said, we get to collaborate with Austin ISD. So we have three or four different elementary schools here in town where we partner with the PTAs, and we're able to provide them with the seeds, and we'll come out and do events with them when they first start to prepare their gardens, when they plant, and then a few times throughout their season. But it's really empowering for families to be able to go out and see the garden themselves and to be able to work in it. I've seen kids who would never eat a vegetable a day in their lives come to the garden and pick the beans off or pull a carrot from the ground and things like that. I know that carrots aren't in the Three Sisters garden, but once you start growing, you really can't stop and it begins to expand. So we've seen our gardens grow from being Three Sisters exclusive to being Three Sisters with so many other cultural specific foods for the people we grow with. So it's been a lovely journey, and beyond just growing, it also opens the opportunity for more associated foodways events. Three Sisters was often associated. We couldn't eat Three Sisters without also having our hunting alongside. So, for instance, looking in that top center photo, you can see an atlatl, which is an ancestral hunting tool for taking down large game and things along those lines. So we discuss foodways in the garden as a holistic measure. We talk about it. Three Sisters is also gaming. It's allowing us to play and get out there and protect the garden and get better, for instance, at things like blowguns or anything along those lines. We play chunky in the garden. That bottom right photo, right in this image, is of an Austin ISD location where we grow our Three Sisters. And we actually got to go out there and host a field day where we gave them a tour of the garden and then played chunky and stuff. And so it's opened opportunities and doors for us to share more of our culture, whether it's through art, games, or history, or anything along those lines. That it's Three Sisters that really started that for us. So a few lessons that we've taken from this garden, again, is just that from planting to harvest, collaboration strengthens every stage. And I'm talking about all forms of collaboration between institutions, intergenerational collaborations, all of it. Again, we're talking about getting our kids out in the garden. And a big way to do that is with our play and with allowing them to make friends and get to know the earth a little bit better. Alongside that, community partnerships make this long-term stewardship possible. The Central Texas Cherokee Township would not be able to maintain all of the Three Sisters gardens that we have if it wasn't for those amazing community partnerships, excuse me. And while I certainly understand that there, things like PTAs and stuff are already very taxed, that's where we're able to sort of look at our community holistically and understand where can we fill in the gaps? How can we make growth possible for every person? And then again, too, another lesson is just that traditional garden models teach us about mutual support and balance. A few more lessons, specifically for children. Kids love to sing, dance, and participate in every way that they can. Every time we're growing our gardens, we always sing with them. We have Cherokee corn songs that we love to sing, and we will get the kids out there and have them dance around our corn with us. That's part of our tradition and our process is that we sing to our corn, we dance with our corn, and these are all things that our kids love to do. They love to get out there and and participate in those things. Um, Another lesson that we've learned from this process is that Three Sisters gardens are beyond seasonal. The work is year round and it's best to start early. So whether that's with collecting water, with securing your seeds, or with just being with your community. The garden is so much more than just growing, it is that community aspect. So visiting and growing good relations with people is also a good step to starting your Three Sisters garden work. And then another lesson is just that food is medicine and that it's really, really important to be able to enjoy that in every capacity. So not just through play, we also think through food. Um, Here's a few photos of some of our Cherokee White Eagle corn that we've grown, as well as some food things that we've made. So for instance, growing Cherokee White Eagle corn and Three Sisters here in Central Texas. Being Cherokee, we're very well aware of the indigenous presence and history that this land has long before it was called Texas. And we were really trying to understand how can we, um, build a narrative that allows all of these voices to speak and to be heard. And that Three Sisters Garden has been such a lovely way to do it. One of our most successful events was at St. Edward's this past year. We grew, I believe it was 200 corn plants and harvested all of that corn and those beans and that squash. And then we nixtamalized that corn. That's an ancestral process that comes out of Mesoamerica where you introduce an alkaline solution, something like lime, hardwood ash, different things along those lines, and you process your corn. And that's how you make things like tortillas, masa, grits are really good from that Cherokee White Eagle corn, hominy. And so we nixtamalized all of that corn and we made it into blue corn tortillas that you can see there on the left. We got some of our beans. We didn't have too much of a bean harvest this year because it was a little too hot, but we got our beans and some other tomatoes and peppers and things we'd grown in the garden. And we actually partnered and bought a bunch of meat from the Texas Tribal Buffalo Project and with student organizations in town and kids organizations. And we threw a big feast where we taught folks how to nixtamalize their corn and how to make homemade tortillas. And then we had students bring food that was from the garden, and from the land, specific to their culture. So things like nopales, pico de gallo. We had manomen even for dessert, a traditional wild rice dish that comes out of, I believe it's Potawatomi traditions, and things along those lines. So that food really was medicine and another opportunity again of just engaging Three Sisters gardens in a new way. We also had wheat lacoche this year on our corn. I'm not sure if y'all know of that or have heard of it. It's wheat lacoche or corn smut is also what it's called. It's a fungus that can grow on your corn. And some folks consider it a blight, others consider it a delicacy. It's really depends on your perspective. If you're growing for seed, it ruins the seed for corn. So it's not good if you're trying to grow a seed bank in that sense. But if you're eating it, it's very tasty. And so we this year had a bunch of wheat lacoche, and thankfully we're able to make that into some like quesadillas and stuff like that and eat that. At the event, we didn't have any more of the wheat lakoche because it was all gone after having been eaten back in July. So we made a similar version with mushrooms and peppers and onions and tomatoes and things like that. And we're able to get really creative with the students to see what they wanted and how could we honor all of the cultures that exist in this garden together. And it was really lovely and we loved it. So yeah. Anyways, that's the bulk of my presentation. I figured I would leave some extra time for us to have some conversations, but wanted to say real quick, Wado, thank you for paying attention. This QR code connects y'all to our Central Texas Cherokee Township Facebook page. And I'm going to leave these slides up and stuff and jump into the chat real quick to see if there's any questions. But feel free to scan that if y'all would like to connect with us or see any more information about our Three Sisters gardens and what's going on. And also, if you've never seen what wheat lakoche looks like, it's on the right side of the screen right there. That sort of bulbous black blob, blackish blob kind of thing right there. It's like a fungus mushroom and it tastes so good. But yeah,
We do have a couple of questions in the chat. Um,
perfect.
One is, what seeds for corn do you recommend for home or small school garden?
So Three Sisters gardening is just really that corn, beans, and squash, and there's different types of corn. So that's where I think you can, depending on your community, you can really allow it to meet their needs. If your kids love, for instance, if you love popcorn, grow a popping corn. If you want to eat sweet corn right off the cob, you need to grow a sweet corn. There's three different types of corn that you can grow. You can grow a dent corn, a field corn, which is what this Cherokee White Eagle is. And that requires that nixtamalization process for you to be able to eat it. I'm sure y'all have eaten corn and had it come out the same way that it went in. It's because it wasn't processed correctly. It wasn't that harder outer coating wasn't broken down. So nixtamalization helps us with that, but obviously it's a lot to go through. So for young children, or especially young children who maybe don't have connection with that cultural processing of corn, maybe they wouldn't be as interested in it. Grow a sweet corn, grow a popping corn, something along those lines. I also, again, I highly recommend growing pole beans. Pole beans, we've had a lot more success with than bush beans, but again, you need to wait a little bit so that that pole bean doesn't end up trying to suffocate her older sister in that way. And then squash wise, the squash vine, we actually have had a really good success with a Choctaw pumpkin. It's called a can't, I believe it's called the Georgia Candy Roaster. But really try to find a squash or a pumpkin that has a really skinny inner stem to try to prevent that squash vine borer beetle. We've also been experimenting with some Texas natives. So for instance, like buffalo gourd, could also work really well in a Three Sisters garden. Anything that's that gourd, squashy, pumpkiny works well. And again, it depends on if you're wanting to eat it or not. A lot of times eating is not the goal of growing these things. And sometimes too, when you grow, it doesn't necessarily fruit. I remember one year we grew beans and they never fruited. And we were like, what is going on? They grew, but they didn't fruit. At least that nitrogen was fixing in, though. The nitrogen was working in the ground. And it was so interesting. We were growing it was called the Trail of Tear beans. It was a black bean. And it didn't fruit, like we said. And then the next season we did a different like mixed bean. And when it grew, it fruited with that mixed bean and with black beans. So it did end up working. It just didn't work initially for some reason. Um, yeah, so that's sort of what I recommend. It does require some experimentation and stuff, but kids especially, for instance, this next year, because we've finally gotten success with our corn, and maybe that's also a thing to say is that your corn needs to be good to your ecoregion. Earlier, I said there's 15 distinct ecoregions, not only in the sense of growing zones, like gardening zones. In Central Texas, we're about 8B, 9A. It's also understanding the soil that's beneath there and things like that. So really making sure you understand that along those lines. Our Cherokee White Eagle really struggled the first few years it was down here. It was short and squatty and not very cute, not demure at all. And so, four or 5 years in now, it's very demure, very classy, long, beautiful, colorful cobs and stuff. And so we're now that we're getting more interest from elementary schools and things like that, we're probably going to try to start cultivating there's a Cherokee popcorn that's like a multicolor cob that would be really pretty, that kids always love the bright colors and things along those lines. So that would maybe be a recommendation if you really want the children to be super, super excited. They love to peel back those husks and reveal those really, really bright, colorful cobs.
That's like a surprise.
It is. It's magic. It really is.
Um, let's see. DeFranco is wondering how he can get hold of you for a presentation in the San Antonio area. So the QR code, is that a way to get a hold of you or?
For sure. Yeah, you can get, so the QR code connects y'all to our Central Texas Cherokee Township Facebook group. You can get on there, and you'll likely see me posting quite a bit. We have two main cultural presenters, myself, Rachel Caldwell Hill, or Wesa Gadusi. That's how you say my name in Cherokee. It means cat hill. When I was a kid, my name was Kit. I was called Kitten. I am now Cat. Um, but you can connect with us through that. We also have a pretty active Instagram account. But again, going back to community, we'll be tabling out at the Austin Powwow this weekend on November 22nd. So getting connected with us through any of those community events too. But yeah, that would work well. Um, yes. One issue. Okay. Okay, yes. When it comes to, sorry, I'm like scrolling down looking at those questions.
Absolutely.
Um, Patty, looking at your question about school closing in the summer, so no one being there for 2 months to water plants. We have a few folks who have tried that. The garden hasn't been as like fruitful in that sense, and I say as fruitful as in producing as much, but it still produces. So if you are thinking through issues along those lines and stuff, there is generally a point that I find, and especially it keeps staying hotter later in Texas. I actually walked outside today and our Texas mountain laurel is blooming. I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, go to bed, kind of a thing. But that being said, planting later in August, after we hit that peak heat of, like July, early August, it can work. It just requires some attention. That's also why I recommend y'all to water either in the mornings or in the evenings, because your plants can get sunburned and they can sort of get heat, way too much heat in there with that excess water on there. So we don't water on top of the plants at all. We go in directly at the root to water in the morning or in the evening. In the summer months, if that's not possible, you can definitely sort of take it back. But if you start early enough, late February, early March, sometimes you can get like like a very late May harvest. I think earlier this year in my backyard, this year, not at a partner garden, but in my backyard this year, we had corn that we were able to harvest the early June. Like we have a Cherokee conference we go to every June that's on like June 8th. And we harvested before that. So I know we were able to get some harvesting in before then, but it's really about once it gets too hot, things won't flower anymore. So that's sort of where we're working. We're working sort of at these edges. Whereas I feel like in other states, when you hear about it, it's this like compacted into this peak 3 month, June to August or whatever. And it's interesting. It feels like we almost work opposite in the spring, fall, trying to compete with that major heat time. Um, Also, are there plants that you recommend not planting near the Three Sisters? I would say tomatoes. Uh, I oftentimes think of like the companion plant, Three Sisters, obviously, as that companion. Another companion piece would be for me is like, tomatoes, basil, and marigolds work really, really well together. But once if they get really successful and stuff too, everything's really hungry and wants to eat. So you can invite more pests in with more like delicious fruit and stuff. So that was something we struggled with this summer. We had some tomato plants right next to it, and we got some of those tomato hornworms on there. And I mean, they didn't necessarily mess with the Three Sisters, but inviting more, it sort of invited more, just more and more and kind of a thing. And it really depends on the size of your garden, how much you're wanting in, and if that's an issue for you, kind of a thing. Some of our gardens really don't care about the pests. The goal is for their students to be able to come in and see what it looks like, what an ecosystem looks like. So they want to be able to go in and see the bugs eating it and stuff. So they don't monitor it as much in that way. So it sort of depends on what you're looking at, but in that sense, if you're really wanting to avoid excess pests, I would try to avoid putting any extra of the like hyper fruiting plants. I would maybe go for more so like things that are really pollinating. I really loved, for instance, I loved putting like Greg's mist flower next to our Three Sisters because it attracts a lot of butterflies and everything along those lines. We ended up getting a bunch of different spiders and things. Yeah, but it was so beautiful, and it's flowering consistently, I felt like throughout the summer as well. So it was pretty. It had pollinators coming in and things like that where it felt like it was lively and active, but not necessarily as destructive for the type of seeds we are wanting to grow because our focus is the seeds. We want to build a seed bank. So that being said, we actually do have our Three Sisters heirloom seeds. That's one of the big reasons we feel a little more comfortable potentially growing different and more seeds now is that our heirloom seeds are officially housed in the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Seed Bank with that goal. So we've been growing these consistently for 4 years now. We have these seeds in that seed bank, and we have excess seeds that we're looking to share with communities and things like that so that we can give them out to folks. And so it's been sort of a growing process, but it's been a consistent growing process. And I think that's such a big thing that Three Sisters has taught us. Again, it's not seasonal. It's year round, but it looks different in each of those stages. So it allows for us to rest. We don't have to be so disappointed that it wasn't as fruitful this year or whatever, because we know it's still working for, you know, produce. It's producing life, even if it's not in the way we expected it in that sense.
Very good. Any more questions? Well, I put a survey in the chat if you all would take a moment just to fill that out. This was wonderful, Rachel, and we're so grateful that you presented for us today.
Thanks, y'all. And real quick, I was going to ask, would y'all mind if I took a screenshot of us just for our